Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here once again with some more cool war stuff, right? Uh, I can't take myself seriously with this hat, so I'm gonna take this thing off. It's Canada Day today. While I'm recording this, it's July 1st, which is called Canada Day for us Canadians. And yeah, I know this isn't a Canadian kind of thing is the Native American resistance, but it ends up leading to the War of 1812, which I learned in history in school. Which I know the War of 1812, Canada wasn't a country yet, but I kind of look at it as basically almost like the Canadians versus the Americans, even though I know it's like the British versus the Americans. So but come on, man, like we're not part of any wars. But this thing, I kind of just had this on for the video, but it looks kind of ridiculous. And it's kind of small and it's hurting my head, so I'm going to take it off. Yeah, I've known nothing. The Native Americans resistance. I'm guessing this is, the Americans, they kind of, they're trying to push for more land. And, obviously they push, for the natives across the entire, America, whatever. And so I think it's the natives just trying to resist, trying to keep their land, I'm assuming. From the settlers and all that stuff, right? And then I guess it leads into the War of 1812, which is it's only a 3-part series. It looks like. So I don't know anything really about the natives. I know in the War of 1812, the natives definitely did a pretty good job and a big role in helping helping the British push the with the War of 1812, they helped the British and fight the Americans. But that's the War of 1812. I don't know. Like this, I guess this is the lead up to it, or this. I don't think this has anything to do with the War of 1812. I just think the War of 1812 happens to be part of this series. I think this is totally different, and then I think I guess the War of 1812 is to just show how they helped, or whatever in 18. I don't know. We're just gonna jump into this, guy, Tecumseh, the Native American resistance. This is on the other side of the world for my normal stuff, right? Usually I do a lot of Europe and Asian stuff, wars. And I thought, it's Canada Day today. It's the 4th of July in a few days, the Americans' Independence Day. And I figure, it's probably the best time of year to kind of do something on the other side of the Atlantic. So this is what I'm doing, because I've haven't done really anything at all, when it comes to, in the Americas, right? So here we go, guys. You guys ready? You guys ready to have some fun here? Where's my drink? There it is. There it is. I'm actually curious if anyone here is from Europe or anywhere else or across the world that's not like, Mexico, Canada, US. I'm kind of curious how much you guys kind of know about like the history, on our side of the Atlantic. How much you guys kind of know about that, how much it was taught to you guys, or maybe how much I'm just curious, or like, is this completely new to you, kind of like it is me? I don't know anything really happened with the natives, here, so it's gonna be new to me. I'm just curious with you guys. But anyways, guys, hit the like and subscribe button below. I think I've done enough talking. So yes, we're gonna jump into this. And if you're new to my channel, I've done a lot of war videos and I do a lot of geography videos. So definitely check out, the different country geography videos and the war videos I do. Check the playlist out. But yes, I'm still talking. Okay, yes. What am I doing? All right, full screen. Not sure exactly what to expect here. I just know it's going to be cool. It might not be a popular series, but it's going to be cool anyway. Here we go. Kings and Generals once again, guys. Definitely check them out if you haven't.
In the year 1812, a young United States of America declared war on the British Empire and launched a full-scale invasion of Canada. No one expected the poorly defended British colony to hold out against a much larger American foe, and yet it did. Canada's salvation came arguably in the form of one man, Tecumseh. He was fighting for his people, the indigenous tribes of North America. His alliance with the British was out of convenience alone, and his true goal was simple: to create a united native nation across the American frontier and retake the land that had been lost. Welcome to our 4-part series on the life of Tecumseh.
Woohoo!
To tell Tecumseh's story from the very beginning, we must explain the world he was born into. Native tribes had inhabited North America for over 12,000 years, but diseases brought upon them by Europeans had apocalyptic effects on their society. By the time the first English pilgrims arrived at Plymouth Rock in 1620, a smallpox epidemic had killed 90% of the local population.
Wow.
By the 18th century, the eastern seaboard was dominated by Britain's 13 colonies, with tribes like the Pequot, Powhatan, and Massachusetts all but wiped out and pushed out of their homes. Now, peoples like the Odawas, Shawnees, Lenape, and the powerful Iroquois Confederacy were on the border of this expansion. Further inland, the French Empire claimed a vast swath of territory from Labrador to Louisiana. It was a sparsely populated land where native tribes exercised full autonomy and were more or less equal partners in the incredibly lucrative fur trade. The French tended not to impose on native territory, and their presence provided a buffer against British expansion. This all changed in 1756, when the 7 Years' War in Europe bled into the Americas. England and France found themselves in a war for dominance over the New World, and the natives were forced to pick
7 Years' War, I guess another kind of series I gotta do, you know?
themselves in a war for dominance over the New World, and the natives were forced to pick sides. The 6 nations of the Iroquois declared for England, but nearly all the other local tribes fought alongside the French. The French were ultimately defeated and their territory annexed.
I mean, I guess it really didn't matter who basically the natives kind of fought for, the French or the British. I mean, I think that everything ends up the same outcome is going to end up happening. You know, they're going to end up pretty much getting like wiped out over time, unfortunately.
The British now ventured inland, occupying formerly French forts along the Great Lakes and Ohio. It was well known that, unlike the French, the British did not come to trade furs, but to flatten and tame the land and displace the natives who hunted and gathered there. As settlers began to trickle...
Sorry, maybe I was wrong.
displace the natives who hunted and gathered there. As settlers began to trickle westwards and British soldiers treated the locals with contempt, whispers of war began to spread amongst the tribes of the Old Northwest. In 1763, the Odawa chieftain Pontiac created an alliance of 14 tribes and proceeded to wage a bloody and vengeful war upon the British. His native confederacy raised hell, capturing 8 forts along the Great Lakes, killing over 2,000 settlers and 400 soldiers. Pontiac's fierce resistance forced the British to pull back and reaffirm an earlier treaty in which the 13 colonies promised not to settle land west of the Allegheny Mountains. Peace was made in 1766, and the tide of expansion had been stemmed for now, but war would soon come to native peoples once more. 2 years later, the man fated to lead them into battle entered the world. In March of 1768, Tecumseh was born to the Shawnee people in a village along the Ohio River. It is said that upon giving birth, his mother looked to the heavens and saw a comet blazing across the night sky. This is where the child got his name, Tecumseh, the shooting star.
All right. I just want to say I'm loving the artwork and the story we're getting right now. It's definitely a lot different than any of the other kind of videos I've done. I'm actually really enjoying this right now. Tecumseh.
The Shawnee had long been a wandering people, beset by conflicts with other tribes. In centuries past, the Iroquois had pushed them eastward from their old territory. They had settled in many places before coming to their present spot along the Ohio River, but turmoil and warfare would carry over into Tecumseh's childhood. In the same year he was born, The Iroquois sold land in Kentucky and West Virginia to the British. These were plains the Shawnee depended on for hunting, but when they voiced their protests, they were ignored both by the British and the Iroquois. So, when continental settlers began pouring westward into their newly purchased territory, Shawnee warriors prepared to defend their lands. In 1774, a 6-year-old Tecumseh watched his father, Puckeshinwau, and his eldest brother, Cheeseekau, partake in a ritual war dance before heading away to battle. They met their foe at Point Pleasant, a force of Virginia militiamen, who the natives called the Big Knives on account of the sabres worn by the colonial officers. Outnumbered and outgunned, the native warriors were driven back. As a result, the Shawnee were forced to relinquish their hunting grounds, allowing the settlers to move westward with impunity.
Yeah, it's just, I guess the British, they're still the British, I guess the British right here, they have guns. I mean, the natives have guns too, but not as many, and they're probably not as experienced with the guns, and they're outnumbered. And I guess, I wonder, like, are all the natives on the same side? Because I know there's like different pockets of them, and I wonder, obviously, I guess Tecumseh I'm guessing is going to bring them all together, so they're kind of like one unit. But yeah, man, it's like if you're going out with bow and arrows against a gun, yeah, you're just not going to win. I'm sure they have guns and they traded for guns, but I'm sure they just didn't have the numbers as the British.
Tecumseh's father was mortally wounded in the battle. With his dying breath, he beseeched his firstborn son to preserve the dignity of his family line and one day lead his younger brothers into battle. The news of Puckeshinwau's death devastated Tecumseh's mother, who was pregnant with the last of his children. It was no less hard upon the boy himself. Fatherless at 6 years old, his family was uprooted and forced to move west. That winter, his mother gave birth to triplets. Of the two that survived, one was named LALAWETHIKA. Initially a useless layabout, the sickly boy would later have a profound impact on Tecumseh's life. A year later, the 13 colonies declared their independence from the British Empire, plunging the region into war and imposing a new threat upon native peoples. As the Revolutionary War raged between Patriot and Loyalist, many native bands now joined the fray on the side of the British Crown. Among them were the Shawnee, who sought to reclaim the land lost to the now rebellious frontiersmen. This invoked the ire of the Americans, who responded wrathfully, sending soldiers into Shawnee lands. Before long, a large band of Kentucky militia were advancing upon Tecumseh's village. Still too young to fight, Tecumseh had fled alongside the women and children to nearby bluffs, while the warriors of the village tried to hold off the militia, to no avail.
Damn.
It was not the first time Tecumseh was forced to move, but this time he was there to see his village burn, witnessing with his own eyes the destruction caused by the Big Knives. Never again would Tecumseh sit idly by while his people's land was ravaged.
It's kind of like, when you think about it, look back on it, it's just horrible. I mean, the natives, they have their own land, they're minding their own business, and then you, of course, you have the kind of like a big wave, Europeans, the British kind of settle in, and then they just kind of pushed, I guess the British and the Americans, they just kind of push all the way to the West Coast, and they're almost all wiped out. There's just kind of like pockets here and there, there's not really. It's kind of sad, man. You think about it, it's like right now, it's like, you're rooting for the natives, man, and you're always kind of like cowboys and Indians, and the cowboys are the good guys, but here it's like, come on, natives, you can do it. And you know what the outcome ends up being, though, but you're still like cheering for them, like, come on. Yeah. But yeah.
In the years that followed, Tecumseh began training to become the warrior his father had wanted him to be. His eldest brother, Cheeseekau, took full responsibility for his younger brother's growth, obeying his dying father's last wish. Tecumseh was taught how to hunt, how to fight, and how to live as a Shawnee warrior should. When he entered adolescence, Cheeseekau blackened Tecumseh's face and sent him alone into the woods to find his guardian spirit. Tecumseh fasted and meditated, and his spirit came to him in a vision. He never revealed to anyone what form his ethereal guardian took. Tecumseh soon matured into a strong, intelligent young man. Allegedly, he once slew 16 bison with only a bow and a single quiver of arrows.
Wow.
He also drew no small amount of attention from the opposite sex. The women of the Shawnee were very fond of Tecumseh, but he did not indulge in their attention, often brushing off their advances.
Wow. Okay.
Tecumseh's first taste of battle came in 1786. The young warrior confronted a host of Big Knives alongside Cheeseekau and a host of Shawnee warriors at Mad River, Ohio. When the Americans fired a musket volley across the river, Tecumseh's nerve broke and he panicked and ran. He had failed his first test as a warrior.
Wow.
He was disgusted with himself and vowed to never show cowardice again. The following years saw Tecumseh come into his own as a capable warrior, albeit still in the shadow of his eldest brother. Continued conflict with the United States seemed inevitable. The young nation was burgeoning and hungry for expansion. Many tribes were resolved to do whatever was necessary to stop colonial encroachment onto their land. In 1785, this tension evolved into a prolonged frontier conflict known to the Americans as the Northwest Indian War. Rarely able to take on the US Army head-on, many native warbands resorted to hit-and-run tactics. By 1788, Tecumseh and Cheeseekau were involved in more than their fair share of skirmishes. Initially camped on the Ohio River, the two brothers and their band of warriors habitually raided the flatboats that traversed the busy thoroughfare. These boats carried food, provisions, and settlers, and their waylaying discouraged many from entering native land. During this turbulent period of his life, Tecumseh began to see the world in a new way. He was fighting alongside not just the Shawnee, but also Cherokees, Mingos, and Delawares. He began to see himself as a native first and a Shawnee second, and realized that his people would never be free of the yoke of colonialism unless they banded together as one.
Right.
He began to detest the
I mean, exactly. They have to band together. I mean, the little tribes are going to bicker amongst each other. They're just going to get wiped out. You have to all come together as one. I mean, that's kind of like we just finished a series on, it's like any country, like, Greece versus Italy. I mean, Greece was kind of bickering amongst themselves. I know this is totally like different, and then Italians, were pushing into Greece, and they all when it comes to times like that, when you all have to get together and just fight for each other, and that's what they're about to do here. And I think it definitely takes a strong leader to kind of keep all of them together, where you're not like fighting, where there's not each tribe's not fighting for control, of the army, pretty much. So, all right, so here we go, guys.
The idea that any one tribe could sell land to the whites, whatever the consequences it brought upon other tribes. Tecumseh came to the revelation that land belonged to no one band, but to all native peoples. Thus, he began to dream of a united and independent nation, held together by a shared indigenous identity. In 1791, an alliance of tribes formed to push the Americans back east of the Ohio River. Led by the Little Turtle of the Miami and Blue Jacket of the Shawnee, they fell upon a force of 1,000 US soldiers camped at the Wabash River and massacred them. It is to this day the single greatest victory won alone by native peoples against the Americans. Tecumseh was not at the battle at the Wabash, but certainly took part in the increased back-and-forth raiding that followed in its wake. In September of 1792, Tecumseh and Cheeseekau joined a war party of Cherokees and Creeks and launched an assault upon Buchanan Station in Tennessee. From inside a stockaded blockhouse, 20 frontiersmen were able to hold off 300 native warriors. In this fateful battle, Cheeseekau was slain, shot dead by an American soldier through a porthole, while Tecumseh managed to retreat with his life. The loss of his older brother fell hard upon the young Shawnee, but Cheeseekau had accomplished what his dying father had beseeched he do all those years ago. Among many native groups, leadership was not determined through formal appointment, but by earning the respect of one's peers. In the years that followed Chisikau's death, Tecumseh had become a fighter of great renown and began to accumulate a small warband loyal to him. By 1794, the Northwest Indian War was nearing its climax. Tecumseh and his warriors joined forces with the Confederacy led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, forming a combined army of 1,300 men. Fighting alongside them was a British-led contingent of Canadian militias who had a vested interest in undermining American influence in the region. Together, they faced an army of 2,000 American soldiers on the bank of the Maumee River. In what would later be known as the Battle of Fallen Timbers, the natives were overwhelmed by American gunfire and attempted to retreat behind the walls of the British-held Fort Miami. The British would not let them in, not willing to risk all-out war with the US. Facing a massacre, the natives were forced to scatter. The betrayal Tecumseh suffered at the hands of the British was one he would not forget.
Damn.
The engagement at the Fallen Timbers ended the 10-year frontier war, and the United States finally managed to impose their sovereignty over the Old Northwest. Native leaders were compelled to sign the Treaty of Greenville, a document that forced them to recognize large chunks of Ohio and the Great Lakes as American soil.
Damn.
Tecumseh was disgusted by this capitulation and stubbornly refused to sign the treaty. Instead, he retreated with his followers to Buck Creek, where he founded a village. For the next 10 years, Tecumseh bided his time, waiting for the opportunity in which he could make his dream a reality, a dream of a united, self-sufficient native nation. That opportunity would arrive in 1805, when Tecumseh's laggard of a younger brother received a vision from the Great Spirit. The idler, known as LALAWETHIKA, would transform into Tenskwatawa, the Great Prophet, and lead a religious revival that would bring together tribes from all corners of the American frontier.
Okay, I'll just, before I give my thoughts, I guess I'll finish off here.
But that is a story for the next chapter. Thank you for watching our episode on the rise of Tecumseh. We're working on more, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel.
Wow. So, the vision probably comes at a great time because obviously coming up is like the War of 1812, the British Canadians, the Canadians versus the Americans, and it's just a great time because they can kind of choose a side and who's ever's going to help them the most. Obviously they're kind of friends with the British now, so, and the British Canadians, because the British, they're in Canada, Americans are in America, and the natives want their land basically in America back. And so because it's obvious that they're going to choose sides with the British because the British are going to be at war with the Americans. So it definitely makes sense. And yeah, it's just the timing's right for them to while this war is going on, it's like, hey man, I have a chance to get something out of this if we end up, if my side wins the war. So that's definitely interesting. I really enjoyed how it was very cinematic, and there was no fighting. This was definitely an introduction, and for I guess what's to come. And I think we're going to end up getting into some battles and other stuff probably coming up, and learn a lot more about the natives and Tecumseh, and interesting stuff. I think I've heard of Tecumseh. I think the name kind of rings a bell, but other than that, that's probably about it. But anyways, guys, I know this is a different part of the world, and definitely a different video than normal. So let me know about your comments below, what you guys think, and if you, like I said, if you what you know about this kind of stuff. Anyways, hit the like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I hope you guys continue to join. It's only a 3-part series, guys. We're gonna make it through, and now you have the Tecumseh and the Prophet battle of Okay, we're gonna get a nice battle next round, so that's gonna be really cool. This was an introduction. It's cool stuff, man. I like stuff I didn't know, and you kind of, it gives you it just gives you a view of the natives, their point of view on things, and Yeah, and it makes you feel for them. They're not because these cowboy Indian movies. You just think of it. They're kind of portrayed as like savages and stuff, but they're real people, and real lives, and they're just they just want peace in their land to live in peace and all that stuff. So definitely interesting stuff. And yeah, hope you guys are going to enjoy this series. I'll catch you guys in future videos. Awesome stuff. But I am out of here. Peace. You guys have a great day, great night. Thank you.